So while our speakers are getting ready to be mic'd, so we can start a discussion about Tunisia. I think pretty much up until now we heard a lot of bad news, a lot of grim speculations about the future of the Middle East, some very tough challenges, to say the least, about some of the foreign policy issues, trying to decipher, trying to understand what the Trump administration is trying to do in the Middle East. I think it's befitting to shed the light on a successful case, at least up until now, of Tunisia. I am a Tunisian by birth. I was raised and graduated from high school in Tunisia. And when I see a lot of people talking about the challenges that we are going through, that how it is extremely tough these days in Tunisia, how the Arab Spring brought with it a lot of problems. You look at the Middle East in general, specifically the countries where we experienced the Arab Spring, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of rolling back on some of the little gains that we saw right after the Arab Spring, for example, in Egypt. We almost went back, not just 2 steps, but 2 miles. And so I remember Tunisia. It came at a time when we as college students who lived in the US, we could not go back to Tunisia in a certain time. 10 years, Radwan Masmoudi did not go back to Tunisia. 20 years I didn't go back to Tunisia. Those are times that when we put those in perspective and we look at Tunisia with all its challenges, with all the problems that we are facing now, I think we're grateful that we are in this place. And we're grateful as Tunisians that we are facing these issues and we are able to not just talk about the successes of Tunisia, but also talk about our challenges, the political problems, the economic disparities that we see, and we debate them in open forums in Tunisia. Those are real gains that we feel to our core, and we are proud of as Tunisians. And I think while we're talking about the Middle East in general, if we look at the case of Tunisia and we want to take a close look at it, I think it would probably give us some hope, but at the same time, some things to think about. What are the things that are working? What are the things that are not working? Maybe some lessons that we could learn. Tunisia is probably could not be a model to every Arab countries, but at least it could be a case study of how we could move forward, how we can avoid some pitfalls that some other countries, if we compare it to where some of the decisions and the decision-making of some political parties, political leaders, civil society, Tunisians as a whole, there were some choices. There were some roads where we came to and we needed to make a choice, whether to go left or right. And I think some decisions were made. I think they were tough, but I think Tunisians did avoid a lot of the pitfalls that other countries are experiencing today. And so we assembled a great panel, and I think you will agree with me, and hopefully you will be even convinced even more at the end of the panel that we have a great panel with us today. Many of them actually traveled quite a long distance. So we have people who traveled from Connecticut. We have people who traveled from Alexandria, Virginia. From Istanbul. But we have people who traveled from Istanbul, and people traveled from Tunisia to be here today to put this great team, and hopefully we can have a great discussion today. We're looking forward to some opening remarks from our speakers, whom you have. Their bios are in the program. If you don't have one, please grab one. And so we're going to go, basically the way it's listed here. We're going to go with Dr. Naoufel Eljammali. He's a parliamentarian. He's a member of the parliament in Tunisia. He was a law professor in University of Sfax. He has an extensive knowledge. He's from Sidi Bouzid, where the birthplace of the revolution in Tunisia. So I think he will bring a very unique perspective. He's also part of the political committee of Ennahdha, very young leader of that party. So I think he will give us a different perspective. He will talk about some of his work in the parliament, in various committees that he is a member of. And so after that, we'll go to Dr. Andrew, who came back recently from Tunisia after a visit. Dr. Andrew is very fluent in Arabic, by the way. I think pretty much all of this panel, we can switch to Arabic and they'll be comfortable talking. And then we'll go to Monica, and then we're saving the best for last, of course, Dr. Radwan Masmoudi from CSID. So with that, please help me welcome Dr. Naoufel from Tunisia.
Hi, everybody. I hope I will not torture you by the quality of my English, but I will do my best to express myself and to share ideas about the transitional process in Tunisia. I thank, a special thanks for CSID and Mr. Masmoudi for this kind invitation, which will, I hope, allow me to talk frankly about the transitional process and this wonderful experience we live in Tunisia now. I'm not here to say that we are in a perfect situation, because perfection is boring anyway, and it is not human. But I think it is important to talk about an experience of a country, country from the Arab Spring, and which is struggling for keeping democracy going on. I think I'm very interested about the title of this panel. It speaks about hope, and I think in Tunisia, when we speak about Tunisia, when we speak about the transitional process, the democracy in Tunisia, it's always about hope. But the title of this panel takes the form of a question, and it is very interesting, because I think that means that we are not in the certainty circle. And we must have questions about what's going on in Tunisia now. I will begin by the hope. First of all, we are in a country which succeeds to secure its democracy, I think, by organizing free and democratic election. We are also trying to finish the establishment of the different constitutional institutions, and we began by voting a very important bill about the institution of the Supreme Council of the Judiciary. But still a lot of job to do. We have to establish the constitutional court. We have to establish also the institution which will be in charge of the regulation of the media in Tunisia. We are trying, despite all the difficulties, to organize the local election before the end of this year, because we are deeply convinced that democracy needs elections, needs independent judge, and needs free press to be strong and to be credible. It is not easy all days. It is hard, and that's why it is interesting for us to keep going on this way and fighting for what we are standing for, and at the beginning of the revolution, create a new Tunisia, a free country with a democratic system, and go this way, despite an unfavorable geopolitical space, and despite terrorism, and despite our economic difficulties. All this leads me to speak about this famous circle of certainty, the challenges we are facing now in Tunisia. It's clear that Tunisia doing a great job to fight terrorism and to secure its own territory, to face this horrible international scourge which is terrorism. And I can say that Tunisia is not more secure or less secure there than any other country in the world. I mean, mathematically speaking, Tunisia is not less secure than France or than other European country. And our security forces succeed to secure the country until now and avoid a big tourism attack. This success is to emphasize, given the situation, given the location of Tunisia. But the most important thing, and I was a witness for this because I'm a member of a commission in the parliament, which is the Commission of Public Liberties, Human Rights and External Relationships. The most important thing that Tunisia, a newborn democracy, succeed to find the balance between fighting terrorism and respecting human rights. This is a very difficult balance even for all democracy, I think. But the main challenge we are facing now is an economic one. And it obliges us to find the balance too between making all the reforms, structural reform on our economy, and taking into consideration the social claims and the social revendication of the Tunisian society. That's why we have some problem when we are dealing with these issues and when we are trying to find this balance between economy and social, between the obligation to take decisions which are for the most very painful for the people, unacceptable in many ways, and the obligation for the state to take in consideration the social claims and the needs of the most vulnerable people in the Tunisian society. And there is always a great links when we talk about economy in Tunisia, great links between economy and corruption, which is the main now issue and the main subject which is discussed among the Tunisian people and among the political party and political class in general. In the parliament, we voted a very interested piece of legislation to fight corruption. Last year, we voted the law of relative to the freedom of information, which is a unique piece of legislation, very important to allow all the Tunisian people to look for any information he wants from the administration, Tunisian administration, and he is not obliged to explain why he wants the information. He is not obliged to motivate his demand to access to certain information from the public administration. This year we voted a very interesting piece of legislation relative to the protection of Tunisian whistleblowers and those who want to denunciate corruption, especially the public officer who may be an object of sanction and revenge from the state, from the administration, because they denunciate corruption and so on. But we are in this field of fighting corruption, facing a lot of problems, especially the lack of resources from the authorities in charge of fighting corruption in the country. And we want to enhance the efforts aiming to give to these authorities real power to have the possibility to establish a concrete mechanism to fight corruption. And all the political class in Tunisia now are saying that maybe corruption is more dangerous for Tunisia than the terrorism itself. And we find that there is a kind of collision between corruption and terrorism in many ways. But what can I say about this is that in Tunisia we are dealing with all these problems which are for the most very complicated by using a participative way to come up with solution and decision. And we are trying to enhance our vision of consensus, because in Tunisia we can do any more politics than we did it under the dictatorship. We must have a participative approach to come up with solution and to come up with decision. And we are, personally, I think we must be very humble. We are not here, and I'm not here to speak about Tunisia to give lessons to other countries or to the Arab countries, because every country has its own conditions and structure and history and so on. But I think this way to deal with politics in Tunisia, this way to emphasize the importance of consensus, dialogue, discussion, the participative approach, it is the best way to avoid confrontation between the different political stakeholders. I think it's a magic solution. We try it in Tunisia and we are doing good thanks to this way to deal with politics. Unfortunately, it takes time. It takes too much time to come up with solution. But who said that there's something in the world which is totally free? You want peace, you want harmony in the political landscape and between all the political stakeholders, the price is the time. And I think it's a logical price. We can afford time now in Tunisia to make sure that the Tunisian society and the political society in Tunisia don't go into the way of confrontation, of violence. And we are making, as an MP from Ennahdha, we are, I think, making the proof that a Muslim Democrats can be a part of a democratical political system and can be very serious stakeholders to build a new era in Tunisia, era of democracy, of liberty, of freedom of expression, and so on. And we are given the proof that Islam is not against democracy. It's not in contradiction with democracy. I'm an Islamic MP in the Tunisian parliament, and I define myself, first of all, as a democratic MP. And every day when I go to the parliament in my commission of public liberties and human rights, I fight for human rights. I fight for public liberties. I fight for establishing real control of the parliament on the executive, and to avoid that the executive go in a way which is in contradiction with the human rights and public liberties. Certainly, and I will finish by this, the situation in Tunisia in the field of human rights and public liberties is not perfect, because we are dealing with the old tradition, old reflexes of the administration and of the police forces, and still have in Tunisia cases of torture, cases of practices against human rights, but we have the right now in Tunisia to speak about it and to condemn it and to control it and to ask the government to take sanction against every public officer who might make mistakes and not respect the rights of Tunisians as the constitution of Tunisia gave to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jamal.